New and recently opened in theaters are a few films. First up is the animated comedy adventure from Illumination and Universal Pictures. It's the Super Mario Brothers movie. This is written by Matthew Fogel and directed by Aaron Hovarth and Michael Jelinek. I'll be actually reviewing this film in the podcast today, but just to give you an overview in case you haven't heard about it, this is a video game movie based on the Nintendo's Mario games that have been out for many years, and I think many generations have played this on various Nintendo gaming consoles. This, though, is actually a collaboration between Illumination and Nintendo, and they joined forces to bring a big screen adventure starring one of pop culture's most prominent plumbers, Mario, and his brother Luigi. This film is very, designed to be very family friendly. I'll be getting more of that into my review, and also really tries to be true to the games. They have a bit of a backstory. Mario and Luigi live in Brooklyn, in New York. They are plumbers, and they, I think they play them to be both single, but they've got a family, they've got parents, and this extended Italian family, and they have this plumbing business. They heed a call to a huge pipe break that happens in Brooklyn, which leads them into a big pipe into the video game world. And there they meet Toad, who's voiced by Keegan-Michael Key, Princess Peach, who's voiced by Anya Taylor-Joy. I should mention that Mario is voiced by Chris Pratt. Luigi is voiced by Charlie Day. Anyway, they have a big video game adventure, of which I'll be giving you a full review. So, the Super Mario Brothers movie is rated PG by the Motion Picture Association for action and mild violence. Next up this weekend is the film Air. It's a drama from MGM. It's written by Alex Convery and directed by Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck joins up again with his BFF Matt Damon in this film. Jason Bateman's in it, and Viola Davis. It's a great cast. It's an interesting story about how Nike, as in the shoe company, got the deal to collaborate with basketball superstar Michael Jordan to make the Air Jordan line of athletic shoes. It's a fact-based drama, and I'm looking forward to it. I understand they got Michael Jordan's blessing, if I'm not mistaken, but he's really not in the movie. It's really focused on his parents. So anyway, I'm looking forward to seeing Air. It's rated R by the Motion Picture Association for language throughout. Also opening up this weekend is the comedy drama Paint. This is from IFC Films. It's written and directed by Britt McAdams. My only familiarity with this was seeing a poster in a movie theater. It stars Owen Wilson, and he looks like that painter Bob Ross, as you may recall. This the Happy Little Trees painter who's got the big afro, and he had that painting show which played on PBS. This film is not about Bob Ross, but it's got a character who's kind of like playing a Bob Ross sort of character. So Owen Wilson stars as Carl Nargle, who is Vermont's, as in the state of Vermont, #1 public TV painter. And it sounds like he really lets it go to his head and his hair. He's got this signature perm. He's got a fancy custom van. He's got loyal fans all over the state. And everything's going great for him until a younger and a better artist, whose character name is Ambrosia. She's played by Ciara Renee. She steals everything and everyone that Carl loves. So, I don't know if this is kind of like an All About Eve sort of thing where Ambrosia is targeted at him, or she's just, kind of lands in it and just is a better artist, I don't know. It's gotten pretty rotten reviews. So, I'm probably not going to be running out to see this, but Paint is rated PG-13 by the Motion Picture Association for sexual, suggestive material, drug use, and smoking. Last week, the film Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves opened. This is a fantasy action comedy from Paramount Pictures. It's written and directed by Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daly, and also written by Michael Giglio. This is a film presentation or a story that is based on the Dungeons and Dragons role-playing game. So, never having played D&D in my life, I don't know if any of this is true to the game. Are they just doing it kind of in name only? Looks like there's a lot of CGI, but it also, I think, is heavy. From what I understand, it's heavy on the comedy, which sounds like it's to his benefit, and that it actually is a pretty fun ride, and and what I've been told is that you don't have to be familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, the game, if you want to check out this movie. It stars Chris Pine. Chris Pratt's in Mario Brothers. Chris Pine, Michelle Rodriguez, Reg Jean Page, and Hugh Grant. And I might go check this out. We'll see, but I'm not really opposed to it, and I'm glad. I hope people are having fun. Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves is rated PG-13 by the Motion Picture Association for fantasy, action, violence, and some language. So, again, new in theaters this week, we're starting to get some movies. We got the Super Mario Brothers movie, Air, Paint, and Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, which opened up last week. So, lots of choices at the movie theater. In my last podcast, I'm actually really embarrassed about it. I neglected to mention the film John Wick 4 that opened up the end of March. So anyway, my apologies. So I made up for it by seeing it. This is probably the kind of film that I typically don't really gravitate to, which is, an R-rated, it's an action movie, but it's a fight movie and a gun battle movie, among other things. So just violent, but incredibly stylish. Now, this is no doubt, being called John Wick 4. This is the fourth in the John Wick films. The director Chad Stahelski and actor Keanu Reeves have collaborated on. Stahelski's directed all of these movies, and so there's a level of continuity. I saw John Wick, the original John Wick, and actually thought it was terrific. Again, R-rated fight movie, but it was so stylish, and I thought had a lot of heart to it. Then I went and saw John Wick 2 when it came out, and reading that the creative team was the same, and I just thought it really fell flat. That it was just kind of this one-note movie. They just were fighting in these neon-bathed, sets, and it was just a total drag. I didn't care for it. So because of that, I skipped the third John Wick film. But now here we are in 2023. John Wick 4 comes out, and and again, I felt bad because I forgot to mention it. It was just so not on my radar. But wow, I'm actually really glad I went to see this. And of course, I can't give this a wide recommendation just because of the violence. But this movie really delivered something I thought unique and special. So it's a bit of a globe-trotting movie. And of course, some of it's just, in sets and whatnot. And it could be anywhere. And I think there's a lot of CGI backgrounds used in this film. But I'm not using that as a criticism. I thought that it was just incredibly creative. So it opens up in Japan. And John Wick is uncovering a path to defeating this group, the High Table, which I think are, his kind of main set of enemies. And if I'm not mistaken, they're the people that killed his dog. That his recently deceased wife gave him back in the first movie. But before Wick can earn his freedom, he must face off against a new enemy with powerful alliances across the globe and forces that turn old friends into foes. The film really gets going when they go to Paris, and I got to tell you, there's this set piece where where John Wick is fighting these bad dudes, and the circle around the Arc de Triomphe, with the traffic. So just the way this thing is choreographed is just, I just was kind of smiling the whole time, even though it's a bloodbath. So I just thought it was so creative and so stylish. And then the finale, again, which is in Paris, just will knock your socks off if you like these action movies. Again, Keanu Reeves returns as John Wick. Lawrence Fishburne's in it. Ian McShane is in it again. I remember him from the first one. And then a whole other cast of characters. Donnie Yen is absolutely fantastic in this. So anyway, there's lots to like if you like this genre, and just thought this movie was incredibly stylish. It was the number one movie around the world when it opened, also at the end of March. So again, another black eye on me for spacing out on it. I think, with adult moviegoers that like this type of action movie, it's really solid. So that's John Wick Chapter 4. Now for something at the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I saw the Super Mario Brothers movie, as I mentioned earlier, and just want to talk about it for a bit. So, as you know, this movie is based on the Mario Brothers, or just the Mario games, with Mario, Luigi, Donkey Kong, etc. Not that I'm a big gamer, but I've got nieces and nephews, and they played these Nintendo games when they were little. So I often would play the games along with them, or we still kind of carry on the tradition. We have a Mario game night or a Mario Kart night, and or other things like that. And so these are characters that I'm familiar with. Some of these lands I'm familiar with. And I thought that just, seeing the previews, that both Illumination and Nintendo really nailed the look of this. Because again, it's they make it look very cinematic, very polished. And this, the CG animation is phenomenal. But then, the story starts. That's where I think that this film isn't going to necessarily work for a multi-generational audience. I think if you were 8 years old, you're gonna, think you died and gone to heaven. But and happily, the screening that I went to, it was full of families and of kids, and number one, it was just so nice to be in a full theater, frankly. And I thought the kids actually were very well behaved, and I think probably because they were very engaged in the movie. But the story, the script, while I appreciated that they were really trying to pay, a proper homage to the video games that these characters live in, it just was not very interesting, I thought, as far as just a film. The voice cast is terrific, as mentioned. Chris Pratt plays Mario. Anya Taylor-Joy is Princess Peach. Charlie Day is Luigi. Jack Black plays Bowser, the bad guy, and I think a lot of people would say that he steals the show. I mean, Jack Black can just be so over the top that just makes it fun, and that's Bowser is such a over the top villain. So it worked, but so it's I guess as an adult, I felt it was eye candy and fun to see that these characters were tried to show some, or tried to get some TLC, or a proper show them proper respect. But what I thought what ended up though was really an uninteresting story. I frankly wish that they could have, given the comedic nature of the staff, and maybe there were more jokes than I realize. And I know humor's hard, but I wish that they could have made it funnier, made it quippier. But then also, that's just from an adult point of view. I think that the all the 8-year-olds in the audience were thrilled. I saw that it got a cinema score rating of A, so I would assume that there were lots of children in the audience. I wouldn't give it an A. I probably would give it a C if they handed it to me. But knowing full well that I'm not the target audience, and not all movies have to appeal both to kids and adults, although I sure think it's nice when they do. So anyway, there you have it. The Super Mario Brothers movie is in theaters now, as is John Wick 4. For Classic Cinema Corner, we've got a few things to cover. First up, if you're lucky enough to be going to the Turner Classic Movies Classic Film Festival this month, I hope you're going to have a great time. That film festival is April 13th through the 16th. It's in Hollywood, California. Unfortunately, my schedule is not permitting me to go this year because it's just one of my favorite events. Basically just 3.5 days of seeing classic movies on the big screen, either in the TCL Chinese Theater or in the Chinese Theater Multiplex, which is right next door. Also in some other venues that are just in the neighborhood. So it's a marvelous event. And anyway, if you go, send me a message on Instagram. I'll be anxious to hear what your experience is and what you see and who you see. Because there's often, movie stars there or people that worked on the films. It's just a wonderful, wonderful experience. The Fathom Events has got a couple things coming up. First off is a 20th anniversary screening of The Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King. And, who can believe that movie is 20 years old? But here we are. They're showing the extended edition, And please forgive me, but I sure seem like the original, the one I saw in theaters is the extended. But I know that there's been others that Peter Jackson has tweaked, but it's listed on the website that this is the extended edition. So I don't know if that means it's 5 hours. Not sure. But still, what a great film. And it's going to be screened on April 13th and again on April 20th. So just those 2 dates. Check the Fathom Events website for more information and to find a theater near you. I'll have a link to this also in the podcast notes on my blog. Speaking of Fathom Events, too, they've got their big screen classics movie for April is The Big Lebowski. This is a 25th anniversary screening of this hilarious and quirky comedy about bowling, a severed toe, White Russians, and then of course a guy named The Dude, played by Jeff Bridges. This is such a cult classic, and what a great cast. As I mentioned, Jeff Bridges, John Goodman, Julianne Moore, Steve Buscemi, Philip Seymour Hoffman's in it, John Turturro, and directed by the Coen brothers. So The Big Lebowski is going to be playing in theaters April 16th and April 20th. Again, check the Fathom Events website for more information to find a theater near you, and I'll have a link in the podcast notes on my blog to this too. Finally, Warner Brothers. The Warner Brothers Studios is celebrating its 100th birthday too. It turned 100 this week, and the Warner Brothers actually were brothers. There were four brothers that started the studio, and what a great studio, and it's still going strong. But Turner Classic Movies, the cable network, they are celebrating. Warner Brothers is the parent company of Turner Classic Movies. So they're affiliated, and what they're doing this month is they're only showing Warner Brothers films, and there's a lot of them because the studio has been around for 100 years, but they're showing feature films and cartoons. Warner Brothers is the home of Looney Tunes, with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and on Porky Pig and all those just brilliant comedic shorts, and in short films too. So if you want to brush up on your Warner Brothers history and enjoy some varied and great cinema, tune into Turner Classic Movies this month. I'll have a link in the podcast notes to my blog to the schedule if you haven't already seen it, so you can choose some things to watch. And they've been also putting a lot of stuff on their social media too about it. So anyway, exciting to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Warner Brothers. And make sure to check out TCM for some great Warner Brothers films. Well, that does it for this episode of the Movies Past and Present podcast. Again, links and more information about the movies discussed in today's podcast can be found in the podcast notes on my blog at moviespastandpresent.com. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Stitcher. Links are also on the blog. I'm also putting the podcast, it's audio only, but I'm putting it on YouTube, and I'll have a link to that on the podcast notes on my blog as well. As always, I hope you will enjoy some good movies this week, whether they be from the past or the present. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, be safe out there and dedicate yourself to the truth.